Please remember to subscribe. It's just one click for you, but it helps me a lot creating new videos. Thank you. Please share this video. 1.9 trillion in stimulus, $150 billion Iran deal, $110 trillion Green Deal, $15 an hour minimum wage. Only 2 months in office and spending the country into third world status. Another 861,000 Americans filed for unemployment benefits last week. We expect global government debt to increase by another $10 trillion this year and surpass $92 trillion. Political and social pressure could limit governments' efforts to reduce deficits and debt, jeopardizing their ability to cope with future crises. This could also constrain policy responses to mitigate the adverse impacts of climate change and natural capital loss. They are bankrupting our country, and the taxpayer is going to have to pay for it. Wasteful spending and bailing out poorly run states. The poor are in debt to the rich. The people, via their bought-out governments, owe the international banks. Banks that were about to collapse. We the serfs, have to pay their financial oligarchies. Assuming the 3% interest rate, that comes to roughly $8.4 trillion a year being diverted from the real economy to our financial oligarchies. That's our pensions, healthcare, infrastructure, and fundamentally, our citizenship. The future of America is Argentina, the future of the EU is Greece and Latvia. The debt cannot be paid. That's not the intent. The goal is endless debt peonage and serfdom for the masses. In other words, fiat currency has nearly reached the end of its use. The goal is the digital dollar. All part of the plan. The elites hate cash because it is anonymous. What they really like is digital assets, as they are fully traceable, and that includes Bitcoin, the asset that its proponents think is anti-authoritarian and a threat to the dollar. One of the first things Bill Gates wants to change is that you cannot be anonymous anymore on the internet. It's not natural, according to Gates. It all comes together. We should be afraid of the future and the way governments, and the elite, thinks and acts. To anyone who is not aware of the dangers of a cashless society to the freedoms we expect, I would urge you to do some research. The withdrawal of cash will be the final nail on the coffin of any privacy you once had and will provide the power that be the ultimate control mechanism. In the meantime, surveys have shown that the average person uses credit cards 75% of the time and cash 25%. If most people would make an effort to reverse those numbers, we could make it very difficult for then technocrats to remove cash. Bottom line, cash, use it, or lose it. Welcome back to the Atlantis Report. You are here for your daily dose of the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please take a second to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to also hit the notification bell. While states and cities have been decimated by draconian lockdown orders and business owners across the country are barely hanging on by a thread, while Americans suffer and 60,000 plus have died as a result of the pandemic, the president somehow thought it is wise to send billions in taxpayer dollars overseas. Let that sink in for a minute. Wasting taxpayers' money, our money, on other countries. They love to spend. Then they raise your taxes to try to cover their reckless spending. While Democrats work on a $1.9 trillion relief bill to get to President Biden by next month, there are rumblings that another multi-trillion-dollar package could follow. They haven't even spent $1 trillion from the last bill. This is no longer a stimulus for needy Americans and businesses, read the fine print. And only 9% of all that money is going to COVID relief. Somewhere along with all this craziness, where the hell is all this money going to come from? And just who is going to pay for all this down the road? These leaders are going to destroy our country by turning every American broke and dependent on the government, giving them total power, while giving themselves an unlimited honey hole for their own zero accountability wealth package. And who's paying for all of this? The country is already in the red for trillions. Non-stop spending means higher taxes. They are already going to raise our taxes to add these stimulus bills. Taxpayers beware. That is your money. We already owe China trillions. Don't people realize that we have to borrow the money for the stimulus checks? They are going to keep giving out money until one day I hear a knock at the front door. I open the door, and some Chinese guy tells me to get off his property. What good is a stimulus if the economy, every business, and schools are not fully opened? Save the stimulus for a more targeted relief to those that need it. What is going to happen when the eviction and foreclosure prohibition ends? They keep raising the deficit. They are going to bankrupt us. How many generations have to pay for this? The inflation that's coming, above what is already here, is going to be interesting, blowing the roof off M2 money stock. It is going to get worse. Once the money runs out, our taxes will rise, inflation will set in, adding to the deficit at a record pace. They are all old, they don't care. Our grandkids will never, ever be able to pay all this back. The real monster in the box is the derivatives market. There are 1,000s of options expiring in the money today that will have to be exercised on Monday at the opening. I want to see where the people who wrote those calls will find the shares to honor those contracts. What is different this time around from the 2011 time period is that debt has soared on all fronts, be it personal, corporate, student, and particularly sovereign debt. There is now $27 trillion of U.S. currency held abroad. This alone works out to almost $90,000 per U.S. citizen. The federal debt is now stated at about $27 trillion, or another $90,000 per U.S. citizen, and many people believe this number is closer to $50 trillion. Then tack on all the unfunded liabilities of the U.S. federal government, all the state debt, municipal debt, city debt, and you can see that we really have a problem. Remember, fiat currencies are only held together by confidence, so eventually, the truth will be recognized. How can house prices double to triple in most jurisdictions since 2008, the debt and money supply doing the same in that time period, yet inflation only be 1 or 2% per year since then? Lower economic activity results in lower corporate profits. Lower corporate profits lead to lower federal tax revenues. Now, if we have lower federal tax revenues in the face of increased federal spending, it will cause an exponential rise in the U.S. federal budget deficit. This is also true for city and state budget deficits as well as for the federal government. The increased U.S. federal budget deficit in the face of an increasing U.S. trade deficit increases the U.S. current account deficit, which needs to be filled by the Fed printing up new money into existence and printing infinitely more and more fiat money, which makes the U.S. dollar less valuable. The U.S. financial system is one of the most predatory, rigged, corrupt systems in the world. A sewer that benefits a tiny 0.01% super-rich elite Wall Street mega-bank cabal. End the Fed. Money is an idea, a concept, an imaginary metaphysical belief, and it's high time we faced the fact that the U.S. government has an unlimited imagination. As philosopher Alan Watts once put it, money is not a thing, it's a measurement. Saying there's not enough money to do something is like a builder saying there are not enough inches to build a house. He has the wood, nails, and hammers. He's just out of inches. The few who understand the system will either be so interested in its profits or so dependent upon its favors that there will be no opposition from that class, while on the other hand, the great body of people, mentally incapable of comprehending the tremendous advantage that capital derives from the system, will bear its burdens without complaint, and perhaps without even suspecting that the system is inimical to their interests. One other point about the money system hijack so that the increase in supply sabotages rather than assists the normal small business person has been revealed by the game stock shorting. The selling of more shorts than there are stocks by coordinated cabal members working in unison can bankrupt companies and liquidity. They are doing it to silver and other commodities that should rise relative to fiat supply increases but are kept down. Money has become a weapon when controlled as it has been. America and its free lunch of having the reserve currency since Bretton Woods, and bailed on its commitment to keep it honest with gold backing is going to let Bitcoin replace the dollar? I don't think so, as many are realizing Bitcoin is a liquidity trap, a psyop by central banks or a central bank to divert away from precious metals. But the big dog is going to let the little dog eat its lunch? How long is that going to last? Bitcoin is still doing what they wanted it to do, but when it gets out of kilter by draining money away from other assets, bonds, equities and pulls the dollar's trousers down in public, ask yourself, is this going to continue? When the dollar finally dies in its current incarnation, it will be a new Bretton Woods or gold back, yuan or ruble, or a derivative of some such from the East. They are just biding their time until the US becomes impotent to stop this. The US economy is not a closed, purely domestic economy. The point of dollar expansion is to tax the tributaries of the empire as much as possible. $500 billion to consumers who will purchase mostly foreign goods. Trillions of dollars to corporations that will invest overseas and purchase foreign goods. Dollar inflation only reduces the worth of US dollar-denominated debts and yet increases the foreign demand for dollars to conduct international trade. So long as the US military can enforce the financial SWIFT petrodollar, the tribute can be exacted. Exchange fiat paper for actual goods, resources, services. It's quite an extortion racket. Of course, those first in line to get fiat dollars then get to increase their property and power, whether domestic or foreign. The problem is the rest of the world has already started to move away from the dollar. With the pandemic, international trade will be decreasing. How that's supposed to increase the demand for dollars is a question. And when the market starts to crash, investors will rush to the exit, and now they have an account full of liquid cash instead of equities. Everyone will sell at the highs and no bids until a 60% drop. I see that coming too.